ricegrass seeds. The hunters harvested the birds in unbelievable numbers. 1,500 birds taken in a day, 50,000 soras in a season.
Mark left.
They came down here for pleasure. They didn't come down here for punishment. They want somebody to push them out there in the boat. That's right.
That was about as hard a work as you could do, would you say?
Just about as hard as I've ever done. I'll tell anybody that.
Pushers like John McKenzie and Leroy Harper poled a specially designed boat through the tall ricegrass. When a sora was spotted, the pusher called out "mark," and the shooter shot. Most hunters were crack shots. A few were otherwise engaged.
I killed a man out there, and I think he must have been drunk. And I said, now when I say, "Mark, you shoot." And he sitting down there, and I said, "Mark." And he bumped, and he done shot a hole right through the side of my boat. Man, I jumped right on board. Yeah, I did. I jumped right on board. The boat was just bouncing up and down. I said, "Man, what you doing? You done shot a hole inside my boat." He said, "No, I didn't do that." I said, "Look, don't shoot that one in the bottom." Now, he was the dangerous man I ever pushed out there.
Dangerous man, huh?
And he told me, I paid for everything.
You'll pay for everything?
Told me, man, he went up there and got in the car and went away from there and he ain't left nothing.
Today, early fall, fog-shrouded mornings on the Patuxent River still offer an opportunity to catch sight of the secretive sora rail. But sightings are more and more rare. Greg Kearns, park naturalist for the Patuxent River Park, a part of the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission, is studying these birds to learn more about their little-known habits.
Once they've entered both funnels, they can't exit. They really don't have the inclination to find that small opening again when it's elevated above their eye level, and you've got them once they've crossed the two funnels. And having a double funnel system like this is ensuring your capture. This is something that I played around with for a couple of years, just trying to keep raccoons out of these things. We were able to catch more birds, going from 50 in 5 years to now, over 800 last year in just a 1-2 month period. And these lead fences or drift fences here, it's 2 foot high chicken wire, 1-inch mesh that guides the birds. Because of their natural inclination is not to fly, they wander along the fence seeking out the source of the sound system, which is a digital chip that has the bird's voice recorded.
Mike Haramis, a wildlife research biologist for the Patuxent Wildlife Research Center, helps Kearns with his work.
We are really just scratching the surface about the basics about sora rails. Greg has devised traps in which to band these birds in numbers that haven't been accomplished in the past. We've also examined hundreds of birds to determine sex and age criteria from trap samples. We're monitoring weights to see how the quality of this habitat is in terms of the birds to refuel, gain weight, especially lipids, which are formed from high carbohydrate seed sources, so that they can continue their migration in a timely way.
Soras have made unique adaptations that allow them to prosper in the marsh.
Of course, their legs are very long, just about probably longest for any bird. They're small size, just about. The toe length is probably almost a quarter of their body length here. And short bill for picking up small seeds like wild rice, which is what they come here to feed on. And their markings are totally cryptic. The brown blends in with the mud, little white highlights in the feathers blend in with the, break up their outline and the reflections in the mud, the shiny mud surface. They have bold vertical barring on the sides of the flanks that blend in beautifully with the vertical lines of the marsh, the shadowing effect it creates. They have a small tail that is triangular shaped when it's closed, little white patches underneath, very similar to animals like a cottontail rabbit or a white-tailed deer. The actual gap is about 1 inch. The rib cage is so flexible, so they can squeeze the tiniest gaps. So the saying, skinny as a rail, you can see where that came from.
After the birds are banded, most of them are released. Some are set aside so that later radio transmitters can be tied to their bodies. This is a very delicate operation.
Yeah, well, that's good. I'd like to see them when they're spunky like that because they're good candidates.
Our radio telemetry methods, we're using a 1.8 gram transmitter. Each bird is individually marked with a different frequency. The radios really are the simplest type of location device. We can triangulate to find out where the bird is.
After the transmitter is attached, the birds are released one at a time in an enclosed environment to see if the string harness is too tight.
I think this is all normal. And the bird as far as its posture, it looks good. Of course, this doesn't interfere at all with flight whatsoever. So the bird has complete unimpaired use of its wings.
Then the birds are placed in a holding cage for further observation. After a final check several hours later, the birds will be taken back to their capture site and released.
We want to know how well the birds survive out here. Nobody has ever studied that before. We want to know how long they stay here on this area. How long does it take them to refuel, to gain the fat reserves, to make the next migratory hop from this area? The radio transmitters have a range of approximately 1/4 mile. And we found that we could actually drive right up with a boat to the birds and locate them within probably 50 meters. And we found out that the birds are basically sedentary and that they stay in a small section of marsh where basically they feed and gain weight. The birds seem to be extremely well protected from predators in this dense vegetation, and we haven't recorded a mortality. We don't have high precision looking at that type of an issue because we only have 20 birds marked this year, and we hope to improve our sample size in future years.
Well, last year we caught over 800 rails, and I fully expected to capture over 1,000 this year by expanding the project and using some of the same habitats that we had great success in banning the birds, trapping and banning the birds last year. But we've been unpleasantly surprised this year by the fact that we've only caught about 400 and so, about half of the birds that we had this time last year.
Kearns and Haramis hope these mysterious birds will help them answer troubling questions about the changing dynamics of the Jug Bay Marsh. For instance, the once abundant ricegrass that attracts soras and other birds here is in decline. It's being replaced by other marsh plants. What will this mean for the future health of the ecosystem? No one knows, or has asked questions like this before. The thrill of breaking new ground inspires them to repeatedly take to the marsh. This excitement and concern has triggered funding from the Maryland Ornithological Society, Quails Unlimited, the Chesapeake Bay Trust, and Prince George's Community College, so that their work can continue.
You talk to most biologists out there, these birds are gone from these wetlands. And, that's a shame that that's happening. It's terrible that, we've caused things to change that much in their habitats and their environment to cause these once common birds to decline.
We think that these stopover marshes are really not that abundant in the flyway, and that there are probably certain critical areas where the bird stops that probably are worthy of protection or management beyond what they're receiving at this time. We need to recognize those habitats. We need to provide better stewardship for the quality of those habitats in the future if we hope to preserve this bird.
We want to know more about this bird and how we can save it, but if it's declining, there's obviously something else going on in this environment, these wetlands, that need to be examined thoroughly and find out what we're doing to them and how we can reverse a trend. So, just one part of the puzzle, of the ecological puzzle.